We are back with another episode of Way of the Warrior. My name is Trevor Martin, host. And what I really like to do is I like to go out on social media and I like to find badass individuals, warriors, if you will, that are using their personal and professional lives, their worlds, to put goodness or light back into this dark world. Today, I have with me such an individual. I've got with me Candice. And Candice, I got to say, we've had a couple different conversations, one right before this recording. In fact, I just want to say I really appreciate not only you spending time with me to talk through things, but for you being here on the show today. It means a lot.
Well, thank you a lot for seeing that within me, but then also giving me the chance to really spread this message with your audience. And just my whole hope in this world is to create more hope, because I
Sure.
understand what it's like to not have any.
Yeah. So I actually we're going to just dive right into that right there, understanding what it's like to not have any hope because been there, done that. And I'm sure, right? Everybody has a story, right? Everybody has a story where they've been, they've been tiptoeing right on the edge of the abyss and they just feel like there's nothing there for them. Let's dive into that a little bit. Talk to me a little bit about that, a place where you were at where you had no hope. Oh, I think I lost you.
You did. I'm sorry. I don't know. I
Oh,
hope this is just gonna, it's because I'm trying to spread the good word. I'm telling you. It's so happy.
well,
Okay,
you're
let me.
back right now, so I'm going to totally edit that out, but let's roll. So
Okay.
let's go. Let's dive into that part where there's no Actually, I might just even leave it. It's pretty cool. Where the a point where there is no hope.
Yeah, so I think to dive into that, I just want to explain briefly a little bit of my backstory. I was a young single parent by the age of 22. I had three kids and was married and divorced and grew up in Texas. So going back home to Texas, that was highly unacceptable. I was very judged and very much put into this box of you're not worthy because you don't have the ideal, lifestyle.
Right on.
So I would really, struggle with my mental health. I struggled before then. I was a kid, adolescent who just really struggled with anxiety, depression, all the things, and a sense of loneliness. And I didn't have the language for it back then. I didn't know this until much later in my life. And, I just never got help for it. And I would go, my entire life, all the way up until my 30s, without having any kind of formal, well, I had some therapy, but nothing for very long. I'll put it that way.
Mm.
And so when I finally had this broken moment, so it's not my proudest moment, let me just share that, but I hit my rock bottom and I literally physically did not want to be here anymore. And I had tried so many different things in my life to make myself feel better and just nothing was working. And I nearly succeeded in taking my life. And I say I'm not proud because, as you heard, like I am a mother. I am a mother of three amazing children who, thank goodness, were not there when all of this happened. They were with my grandmother at the time, but it was still a moment of like, I woke up in the hospital and I was like, I can never be here again. I,
Yeah.
had direct dialysis to my heart, so very serious. And I didn't even realize the severity until much later. You always think the doctor's like trying to scare you into not being there, but it was just an awakening moment that really catapulted me forward into getting the help I needed.
Yeah, but that's not something that's easy to talk about, right? Especially, I mean, you pinpointed the fact that, like, look, dark moment in my life, I was a mother, and I just didn't want to be here. I find it's crazy, been there myself. I find that in talking about it, there is, I don't know, maybe freedom is the wrong word, but there's a piece about it. There's a piece about talk, there's a piece around the conversation. Like, look, I was in that dark. I was in that void, looking for a way out, man. understanding what it's like to actually have not succeeded, not
Hmm.
actually gone through and power in that in itself, right? Because then there's the realization, no, nope, don't want it. And that, what was I, whoa, what was I thinking? And
Hmm.
it's like there's a renewed sense that something happens in here, right? Or another lens comes in front of your eyes, and you're like, I see things a little bit differently now, or a lot differently, and it's time to make some major moves, and then we do, right? So thank you for sharing that. So we're in this dark, we go with this dark period, and you yourself said, like, I can never be here again. What was your next move? What changes did you make to ensure that that didn't happen?
Well, I just recognized the severity of where my mental health was. And so I sought out therapy. I did therapy in the beginning and really had to work through a lot of the trauma that I had lived through. I had
Mm,
really not worked through any of my lifetime. And so I had to sit with the heaviness of everything and found somebody that really aligned with where I was coming from, having been in a domestic violence marriage with somebody who I thought was really, and I mean, they're a great person on the inside, or they were. He was just really struggling, and I didn't see that. He was a previous paramedic and firefighter, so severe trauma, severe PTSD, and unfortunately, he was living that experience towards me. So I was the recipient of his alcoholism and all of the things. And so I really needed to dive in with someone who understood that complexity of I needed to no longer be in that place and I had to rebuild my identity. So I got to this place where I didn't even know who I was. And that was really nerve-wracking because when I looked at it, I didn't really know who I was ever. I was 32 at the time. So this is almost 10 years ago, which is crazy. But I was sitting there thinking, wow, I've literally tried to live my life for everyone else, everyone else's expectations. I don't even know what I want to buy at the store, let alone who I am. And so I had to go through this really uncomfortable process of seeing my own ish, right? Like I had to acknowledge what I did wrong and how I wasn't exactly happy with who I was, and that I needed to work through the things that I had experienced so that I could be that better person. So it started in therapy and doing that deep inner work, and then it would be a journey of evolution. So I remember I wrote down on my journal before I even, knew about the power of words or affirmations or anything. I wrote, I want this change. I'm doing this change. I am this change. And I think I wrote that every day 1,000 times, like for months, because I was just so determined to make myself better and to uncover what was making me not well. And through a series of things, my journey really catapulted and changed in different ways. I would go through two more severe moments of transition, I guess I could say. My kid's father died 4 years ago. While he wasn't in their life, it was still a very pivotal moment for them and for myself. And then my previous ex-spouse, the abuser, he took his life during COVID. So I found all of that out while we were moving. So it was like a whole box of things opened again. And I had to work through all of the layers of those complexities. And I share that because it's a reminder that even when you're on this journey of healing, we can be presented with different moments in our life that shake our foundation and it shakes it all over again. And then you have to like recalibrate, realign, and be like, okay, what am I looking at? What am I dealing with? And just knowing that sometimes your journey is going to shift like that. And it's okay if you're not 100% where you were. Because I felt like I went backwards. It was like, man, I was
I
doing really
bet.
freaking good. And then
Yeah.
this happens. And I'm like, what is going on? So,
Mm,
but again, like I had to be willing to sit with everything, and I wasn't at first. I did not want to sit with all of the layers that I was feeling as I was angry, I was disappointed, I was, frustrated. Then I felt guilt because I was like, well, I left. So is that why? And I had to filter through all of that. And I share that because it's okay if you're in that season of having to filter things. And just the acknowledgement of it is the most powerful thing you can give yourself. Because what we tend to do is shove it away and not deal with it. And then it rears up, like we were kind of talking about, and it just presents
Yeah.
itself in a way where you can't ignore it.
So that's, I mean, that in itself, I mean, just right in conversation, just talking about the loss of life. I mean, that's heavy. Like I mean, there's so much to unpack right there that you just shared, and thank you for sharing it. You know, so I'm gonna use that and I'm gonna ask this. Well, I'll make a statement first. Selfishly, we can go through those experiences, right? We've done this. We can go through those experiences and we can say, huh, well, that's penance, right? You were talking about guilt, right? That's penance from some of my from for actions or whatever it might be. Like I'm paying, this is a divine or higher power saying, well, you've done this, so now you're going to experience this, and now you're going to have you go through this, and you go through the whole guilt process. Right or wrong or indifferent, you still go through the process. Um, but then there comes a point in time where you've got to make a decision, and you're talking about the things that you wrote down, every day. And where did you find yourself when you made the decision to say, okay, well, I've been growing and I've been changing, the evolution that you're talking about. These things have happened that kind of knocked me off my rocker a little bit. I'm gonna saddle up, I'm gonna get back up, and now I'm going to not only keep evolving here personally, but I'm going to start helping other people as well. And I ask this question because it selfishly, we want to go, God, I got a lot going on. There's a lot riding on these shoulders. Like I got burdens, man. So I'm gonna handle my own shit. I'm gonna do my thing. I'm gonna handle it. And then there's other individuals that say, and there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. And then there's other individuals that say, okay, I got this. I've got experiences. Whew, this is heavy. You know what? I feel a call. I feel called. There's a calling. I'm going to help other individuals as well. When did that happen for you?
Oh my gosh. So I would say it was right when I got into the work that I do now. I just knew that the moment that had this ability to move through things, because that was the thing as I was coming into my life and I felt stuck. I had done all this mindset work, all this therapy, all these things, and I was like, why do I still feel like I'm carrying the weight of all of this? I've got to
Mm.
figure out a different way. And
Yeah.
the Warrior Within Healing, my business, the name came from having to summon my inner warrior to get through that stuff and to face the
Preach.
things and to do it over and over and over again, even when I was like exhausted and didn't think I could do it again. But the moment that I experienced my first healing session, I felt a love, a compassion, an understanding, a support that I had never fully known in my life. And I'm not saying my parents were amazing humans. They had their own things going on, they had their own problems. And I can say that now because I didn't feel that way before. I did not, I held a lot of anger and sadness towards them. But I share all of that to say that I had never felt that sense of connection in my entire life. And it was something that once I felt that, I said, the world needs to feel this. Because if I can go from feeling the darkest, deepest feeling I've ever felt in my life of unworthiness, of feeling like I didn't need to be here, to what I feel and experience now, then I need to get this out there to the world because it can truly change your life. And I knew that I didn't go through all of this stuff in my life to just sit with it. I just know that. Like some people, you don't have the capacity yet to do that, and that's okay. But the moment that you do, you can then turn that story, that narrative, that experience into something that changes the next life. And if I can prevent somebody from walking down that dark path because I'm like, "Hey, I get it. I know what it's like not to want to be here. The world is crazy. You've got this going on in life. You just lost your job, your marriage is falling apart or whatever it is. You still deserve to be here and you will see it through. You might not have an easy path, and that doesn't mean that you're a bad person or you're not doing things right. It just means it's the path you're on right now. And so, if I can share that message and help people reconnect with their divine essence, then I've done what I'm here to do. And so, it was not even something that I even had to think twice about. Now, has my business had to grow and do the things and evolve and expand? Absolutely. But I just knew that moment. I was like, I have to share this because it cannot be kept a secret. And it sounds so funny to say, but I know that world peace could literally happen. It's a long shot away, and I'm not here to do that. I'm not saying that, but the potential and possibility is so there because we are so much more supported than we ever could realize. And that is something I had to learn and see and feel for myself.
Hmm. Let's talk about so supported. Let's talk about that. You said we were so much more supported than we realized. What do you mean by that? So, and I'm not saying, playing the devil's advocate here, I'm not saying that we couldn't get to world peace. I'm not saying that we couldn't, but you talked about a long shot. Right, that when you just think about the how massive that ask is, that's huge. But let's talk about rather than just focusing on on how massive that ask is, let's talk about that support. Like how when you say we were much more supported than we realized, what do you mean?
So most of us walk around feeling so alone and we don't recognize it. And that's what causes a lot of pain. It's what causes a lot of anger. It's what causes a lot of sadness and all the lower vibrations that we experience. Now, all of those are signals that something's out of alignment. So
Okay.
I'm not somebody who believes we need to only feel the good things because we experience every emotion for divine purpose, right? Like it's there for a reason. So when we embrace that, then we can move through it and understand it and utilize it for something better. Um, so to say, that we are supported, again, it was a concept I didn't realize that was available. I thought that I had to do everything on my own, that I had to achieve everything in this life on my own. And I did that. Like that's what I did my entire life. And yet there is this divine calling and energy that is available the moment that we open to it. And so when I say support, it's more about remembering that if you if you have a desire in your life, you can go for it. It's not saying the path is going to be just super lollipops and flowers. It's that you will move through the tension, you will move through the moments of hardship, you will find the way through. And as you soften, as you open, as you learn and grow and heal, that road gets easier because it's all capacity building. It's all helping you get where you need to be. And if we were truly on our own to do this, we wouldn't get to the other side, right?
Yeah.
But we have this, and it's a deep remembrance. There's a book called The Awakened Brain, where a doctor has studied that we are born with 30% the desire to connect with something greater than ourselves. It's in our brain, literally there. The other 70% of that development is completely environmental. So you still always hold it, but whether you actualize that or dive into that is truly up to you. So just to share that nugget.
No, I think you're talking about that book, and you just, that desire, that 30%, that desire to connect with, or something divine, something greater, right? That ultimate, whatever that is. I always say, there's three questions we always ask, and you can debate on whether or not we'll ever get those or we have the answers. One is, how did we get here? Two, why are we here? Three, what comes after? Right? And so I'm gonna go back to the whole devil's advocate thing again, and I'm gonna dive into and ask you, what would you say? And we've talked a little bit about this, off recording, but what would you say to an individual like me who says, um, I've tried. I've tried to uh be in tune with anything spiritual. Um, and it's just crickets. So would ask, is that a me problem, or is there just nothing there for me on the other side? Meaning, it's just that's you're just one of those people that just gets silenced, brother, right? So I'm being serious about that, and like I said, we've talked about this before, but it's for me, it's the same thing. It's just quiet.
Hmm. Yeah. So and I don't know what your experience was, but in all that I've worked with clients, a lot of times when authority has failed us in the past, which we often equivalate the divine with an authoritarian figure, right?
Fair,
It's
yeah,
really
true.
hard. It's really hard to tune into that when authority has failed you in the past. There is this resistance to connecting with something that could potentially harm us. There is a risk in trusting something that we can't fully understand, comprehend, or see. Go ahead. What
100%.
were you going to say? What were you
No,
going to say
no,
about?
I'm just adjusting.
Oh,
I'm in.
okay.
I know I'm locked in.
Yeah.
I'm agreeing with what you're saying.
And so when we have that built-in resistance, it takes that, and I call it softening because as warriors, we have this armor that we place on ourselves for protection and safety, and there's
Makes
divine
sense.
purpose behind that. And so we do have to kind of take the suit off for a moment and say, okay, how can I move through my lived experience and understanding of what has failed me in the past? So that I can then open to something that is much more divine and much more supportive. Because, and I know people can't see my hands, but like literally, we think that we are this much supported, and then we have to effort and we have to do and we have to be because we've had to do that our entire life. And so, what I would like to offer for someone that is struggling to connect with the divine or anything that is a higher source, it is that questioning of what caused you to not want to connect with this energy and to allow the heart space to slowly open to the potential and possibility that you are actually supported, because where you might not have been supported before or where authority failed you in the past, that was an experience. It is truth for you. It is something you went through, and it is not everything. And so again, it's the unlearning and relearning of what that energy is. And if you've had an experience that has taken away from you or caused vulnerability, it's really hard to be like, why didn't you step in? Because we ask those questions, and that's fair, right? It is literally fair to ask those questions. I
Yeah.
actually don't have the answer to that. I don't. That is something that I've sat with where I'm like, why do these different things happen? Because I can't conceptualize it. And I think what happens in our world is that, and we've talked about this, is that the way in which we utilize our energy, so whether it's good versus bad, okay? Energy
Preach.
is a energy is a concept. We do not have good versus bad energy. It is the actions to which a person takes that makes it as such. So you can take energy and place it wherever you want to, but it is the person that literally makes that choice. And so while I cannot say and answer why this stuff happens, I cannot. As somebody who's gone through trauma in my life, I cannot understand it. However, I can therefore, though, choose to move through my experience, understand it, and move forward and not hold on to it or let it hold on to me because it will literally eat you alive. Um, so I hope that helps answer that divine
Uh,
connection.
100% it does. And I would, some people speculate that, well, wait, what if we are the divine? What if
Oh,
it
we are.
starts and what if it starts and ends with us? What if this right here, what if this is the higher power? And then I could go into whole, what a waste of energy if if that's that's my pessimistic view, right? But,
Yeah.
I will say this, you are 100% correct on a higher power, right? We plead, we ask, like, oh my, why am I going through this? And then when we think of a higher power or yeah, anything like that, that we feel may have betrayed us. So you have not listening, and then you feel like you've been betrayed by it, or whatever it might be. That just compounds the problems and everything that's going on right up here. Um, but to your point, eating us alive, right? That trauma and we talked about this before, but yeah, that's true, right? If you don't process things, if you do, and I'm straight up guilty right here, it will, I mean, it will, it'll come out in just in your physical form, the pains, the things that you're going through, experiencing, um, dreams, whatever it might be. And I think that that's pretty powerful because it's the body's way of saying, hey, this isn't healthy. So you need to do something and you
Mhm.
need to do it right now, like whatever, whatever, obviously symptoms, whatever you're going through, you need to acknowledge this. You need to take care of this. Um, okay, so let's move forward a little bit to, we talked about how you made that transition to, hey, I want to help people. And you were talking a little bit about how you're helping people current state. When you look forward to the future, when you think about the next year, the next 3 years, what do you hope to have accomplished, or what do you want to build based off of what you have now?
Yeah, so based on what I'm building now, like I know that my current, like, I guess, how do I say it? Like, my current role right now is to help get people into the practice, and I'm already doing that. And so in this next year, I want to really put together a conference that's on my goal. Like, I've never together anything that big, but I'm hosting a retreat. I'm doing a lot of retreat facilitation work in this next year. So going in and actually doing the work for someone else. And so I'm looking forward to that. I'm doing more group connection points because there is something that's really powerful when you're in the energy of people on the same path. I think that it requires being in the same on the same path. You don't have to necessarily be exactly in the same experience, but aspiring to be very much in the same energy. So I see myself doing more retreat facilitation, more group work, and really bringing this to the big stage. Like, that's a goal of mine. I would love to be able to speak to the power behind all of this work. I try so hard to demystify all of this healing work because it's literally changed my life. And I've watched it change my client's life. And I work with people who have gone through some really heavy things. And so the first few sessions aren't always easy. There's a lot of crying, there's a lot of moving through energy, but then it gets easier. And so if I can take that and share that with others to give them the opportunity, then again, I've done my purpose. My long-term goal is to open a retreat center, but not when I say retreat, people automatically think of Bali or, these exotic places and 5 and 10K
Yep.
like experiences. I want to make it accessible for everyone to be able to come in and do this work. And I'm really big on the education piece. So not just coming in to have the work done for you, but to help you take ownership in your healing journey, to help you move through things and understand, how does this all work? How can I apply this in my daily life? And how can I create a better version of me? And I don't even like saying that word, but an evolved version of me, so that I can then show up as a different parent, a different partner, a different community member, because it all starts here. So that's the long-term goal, is to bring community together, to learn, to expand, to grow, and to just
Yeah.
continue to spread this work.
I applaud that. That's, in my opinion, that's not going to be that's not an easy task, right? I mean, that's huge, especially when you're trying to reach an audience to or build something that everybody can be a part of, right? Um, One last question, because it's just circling in my brain. You said I really want to work hard to demystify this. Why do you think you have to demystify it in the first place?
Well, because not everyone's ready to hear all of the super woo. That's the biggest thing. We're stepping more into that, but also I think we overcomplicate things. And the divine, so I get a lot of divine downloads, channeling, however you want to label. And one of the biggest things that came forward for me in this season is that I'm here to help bridge that. The spirituality meets groundedness meets reality. So science meets spirituality, and help people see themselves in doing this work in a way that is accessible. It doesn't have to be, again, you don't have to be dancing in the rain or around the fire or meditating for 12 days to have a spiritual experience. It's more about the grounding work that we have to do first. And so because a lot of my work is more focused on here versus, up in the sky and all these different dimensions that everybody talks about, it's like, that's great, but like, we live here. So how can we live a better life here? And we can do that through working through our experience. And so when I say demystify, like, all of this work is still very taboo. And I've said this, I was actually talking with a client of mine who's a therapist, and she's like, I was like, this is kind of like therapy. When therapy first came out, it was very taboo. Nobody wanted to talk about it. Everybody was doing it, but again, it was all closeted. And so right now, people are starting to see that all of this ancient wisdom is being proven by science, and it has been for a very long time. It's only just now that it's like really being publicized. And so being able to shift into that new awakening has been really helpful. But again, it's baby steps in your journey. Like, if you can just come in to experience it, then you can take and make it as woo as you want to. Like, you can go get all the crystals, you can do all the things if you want to, because all of those type of things are anchors, right? So there are scientific benefits to crystals, to rocks. I can tell you that it's legitimate. How they're formed is actually what creates the energy signature, which then creates the healing, because it's aligning the energy of the body to that frequency. So same thing with sound. Sound aligns the body to the frequency in which you're trying to get to. So all of it can be proved in science. And as human beings, we need anchors to help us understand things. And so if we have those, then that's what we turn to. But if we can make it simple by tuning into our energy first, then all of these other things become added benefits and tools. So I share that because, again, all of this work we can do for ourselves. It's just learning how and learning and remembering. So if I can baby step people into understanding that, then it's demystified. It's not as esoteric. It's not, oh, I got to go live in the clouds and feel like nothing on earth is going on that's crappy. Like, no, I know and I see and recognize the world is really crazy right now. So, how can we prepare our best for going through that experience? So,
I appreciate your transparency, and I appreciate your willingness to talk about, because that was a loaded question, and that's a pretty direct question. And I think you talked about, so thank you. You also talked about that, um, you know, you talk about therapy, how it's pretty closeted, and then all of a sudden people go, "Oh, therapy works, and I'm coming forward with therapy, and I'm going to do the damn thing, right?" And then how this is starting to people are starting to become more accepting of it. Do you think, and this question could raise a lot of eyebrows, and if you want to pass on it, I totally respect it. But do you think that religion has had anything to do with maybe keeping a little bit of that quiet, maybe keeping when we think about therapy, like, ooh, listen, you don't need therapy, just need God. You don't need what you're doing, you just need God. You just need prayer, you just need whatever. And so people, the norm society is like, hey, this right here, this is what works, right? This works, this, no, and this is also considered witchcraft.
Mm-hmm. Oh
Thoughts?
yeah. Yeah, all the witchcraft, like all the pitchforks coming for me. Um, so I think religion has had a really bad misinterpretation of all of the ancient wisdom and works. Because if you were to dive in, you would see all of these practices that we're now starting to accept were all in there. So there were mystics, there were sages, there were people who had dreams and visions, visionaries, psychics, like all of it's there. The tongues, speaking of the tongues, channeling.
All of that, yeah. That's
So
it.
the laying of the hands, actually, like the disciples all had the same ability to lay hands and heal. So why would it end there? First of all, that's my first question, you know?
Sorry to interject, but I believe in the Old Testament, King Saul goes and actually visits a sage or a witch, and I don't know if he asked them to call forth, and I hope I don't know if it's the spirit of Samuel, but he says, hey, come, because I think he's trying to predict the future, who's going to win a battle or something like that. He's on the run. I'd have to dig about him, but he goes to a sage and and then when I think he ends up getting what he wants. Like he gets like
The message,
I don't
yeah.
know the message, and I think the spirit just says, "Why did you do this? You shouldn't have done this." Da 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 da. But yeah, that's in there too. That's in the Old Testament.
Yeah, so it's all throughout these texts that all of this existed, and it's very
Hmm.
small of us to think that it wouldn't continue. Like, why would all of these beautiful gifts just end there? And so that's the first, answer to that. The second thing is the interpretation piece. People can take a text message and interpret it 12 different ways. They can take an email, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like think about that when you're thinking about this because it is relevant. Like, do I feel like they've harbored some of this? I think that there are some that do not wish for us to be well. Yes, because there's a lot of profits that go into that. And there's a
Go
lot of
on now.
profits.
Now I'll applaud that. Go on now, preach. Go ahead. Yeah.
So there's a lot that, yes, I do see ill intent behind certain things. Now, are the masses ill intending? No, it's just what they've learned. It's just their conditioning. So if we can really
Sure.
step back and say, what is it that I truly believe? I believe that when I'm in session, because of my upbringing, that I'm literally praying for this person to get better with their consent. Because that's the other thing that a lot of these things, oh, just pray for people. Well, actually, probably not the best idea because you need to ask them specifically what they want. And we don't usually do that. Not that there's anything bad. Okay. Just don't come hating at me. But, anyways, the point is that we have to truly take a step back and see what it is that we truly believe and go back and reread things from the lens and filter of our own perspective because there's a lot of prophecy that is in there and we're apparently I missed this the other day, but somebody was like rapture this and rapture that and like all the stories. And I was like, what is going I missed something. I won't dive into that. But anyways, so we have been fed and force fed to look for what we look for. And so if we can take and really filter it from a new perspective, one of the most eye-opening experiences that I had was I went to an ashram, which is a yoga retreat center in Northern California. Oh my gosh. Anyways, and I stayed there and it was the first time. I had ever been to what they call like service, where you come together and you just listen to a message. But they literally had all of these great sages and wisdom keepers and sharers, ancient masters is what they call them, all in a line. I had never seen that before in my life. Like Jesus was it. I didn't even know about any of the others. And so I'm like, whoa, they're not fighting each other. They all believe different things. So what is like this is different. This is a whole different experience to me. And it was the first time that I really like bridged in my brain that, oh, we can gravitate to certain masters for specific reasons, for specific lessons. And that's the intention. That's the divine intention, because I interpret life differently as someone else does too. And so that's why there are all of these. So, anyways, so to circle back to your question, do I feel that religion has fractured, is what I would say, our ability to connect in? Yes. Now, do we have a choice as to what we do going forward? Absolutely.
That is like the perfect ending. That's like, I will tell you, this conversation, you're definitely going to come back on the show because I have so much more that we could talk about it. But so thank you very much for all of that. Candice, real quick, how can individuals get a hold of you? What social media platforms are you on? Audience, you got to get her on your roster, that's for sure. But Candice, how can they get a hold of you?
So I am most active on LinkedIn. So Candice Vandertholen. You can always email me at thewarriorwithinhealing@gmail.com. I always joke and say people can sneak into my life through Instagram stories because I'm usually in there. It's kind of your way to stalk me first. But I'm a pretty open book. I don't mind answering questions. As you
I
know,
can
like
attest to that. Yeah.
I love the challenge. It's so fun because it's fun to have the experience of answering questions that we all have and seeing things from a different perspective. So I always learn something too.
Right on. Well, I can, audience, I can tell you right now, we've had conversations off camera, and Candice, you're one of the most authentic, um, putting an individual that puts transparency first, and sits there for the tough questions and doesn't deliver bullshit. So, meaning like, hey, if you don't have something, you don't try to fumble your way through it. You're like, look, this is what I know. This is it, man. This is it. And I really, really appreciate about that, especially when you were talking about the energy. There's no good energy or bad energy. There just is. It's all about what you decide to do with it, right? And that obviously struck a chord with me. Um, Audience, you've got to connect with Candice. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. This one was damn good. Please make sure you provide your feedback, and we will see you next time. Later.